Welcome to the Humanized Books channel, when we will bring you mini books based on summaries of other books, preserving their essence but expressed through other perspectives. Today, mini book title Change Your Life, 1% at a Time. Atomic Habits, Complete Breakdown, inspired by Atomic Habits. James Clear. Welcome to this complete mini book summary, one of the most impactful guides on behavior change and personal transformation ever written. Let's focus on what comes next. Plug in your headphones and let's get started. Introduction. Habits are the small, often invisible choices that shape the direction of our lives. Most people think dramatic transformation happens through big decisions or sudden bursts of motivation. James Clear argues the opposite. He shows that real, lasting change grows from tiny behaviors repeated consistently, the atomic actions that accumulate over time into remarkable results. His core idea is simple. You don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. A goal gives you direction, but your habits determine your progress. Before presenting his framework, Clear begins with his own story. A serious childhood accident left him with traumatic injuries, long recovery periods, and a sense that life could slip off track without warning. When he finally returned to school and sports, he didn't transform overnight. He improved by building small routines, studying a little more each day, training incrementally harder, and keeping himself organized. These habits were tiny, but they moved him forward. Years later, they carried him to academic success, collegiate athletics, and eventually a career studying behavior and human performance. Atomic habits are built on compound growth. Just as money multiplies through interest, behaviors multiply through repetition. A habit that makes you 1% better each day seems insignificant in the moment, but over a year, it makes you nearly 37 times better. The same is true in reverse. Negative habits compound quietly until the consequences demand attention. Clear emphasizes that habits matter because they become identity. Every action is a vote for the type of person you are becoming. Each healthy meal reinforces the identity of someone who takes care of their body. Each page read reinforces the identity of a reader. Each small improvement reinforces the identity of a learner. In this way, habits are not just behaviors, they are the foundation of self-belief. This mini-book distills the most important lessons from Atomic Habits, organized into 6 major sections, mirroring the structure of the original work. You will discover the psychological mechanics behind habits, the 4 laws of behavior change, and the advanced strategies that help people reach excellence. The goal is not perfection, but progress, small, meaningful actions that compound into a life you can be proud of. Section 1. The Fundamentals. James Clear begins Atomic Habits by explaining why small changes matter far more than dramatic transformations. The fundamentals provide the mental models you need before any habit can be built or changed. These 3 chapters lay the foundation: why habits compound, why systems matter more than goals, and why identity is the true engine of behavior. Chapter 1. Why tiny changes make a big difference. Clear opens by dismantling the myth that change must be large to be meaningful. Most people look for big wins, a strict diet, a perfect routine, or an ambitious goal, and become discouraged when they can't sustain them. But improvement works more like compound interest. One small behavior repeated consistently creates the conditions for exponential results later. He illustrates the idea with a simple curve. If you become 1% better each day, the improvement feels invisible at first. You may look in the mirror, study a new language, or practice a skill and see no obvious change. But consistency creates momentum. After weeks, months, and years, the compounding effect becomes dramatic. The opposite is also true. Small neglects, ignored responsibilities, or daily shortcuts quietly accumulate into major consequences. Clear also highlights the plateau of latent potential, a phase where effort seems to produce no results. This is the moment most people quit. They assume the lack of visible progress means nothing is happening. But change often happens beneath the surface, only appearing after a threshold is crossed. The lesson: you must trust the process long enough for your habits to reveal their value. Ultimately, Clear argues that habits are not just routines. They are the tiny building blocks of transformation. Each action is a small vote for the person you want to become. Change is not an event. It's a slow, incremental accumulation of decisions that compound into a new identity. Chapter 2. How your habits shape your identity, and vice versa. People often try to change by setting goals like, I want to lose weight, or I want to get organized. But Clear explains that focusing solely on outcomes rarely works. because outcomes don't address the underlying system of habits or the identity that drives them. Sustainable change happens when you shift from outcome-based goals to identity-based habits. This means asking not, "What do I want to achieve?" but "Who do I want to become?" If you identify as someone who never sticks to routines, your actions will match that belief. If you identify as someone who prioritizes health, even small decisions start reflecting that identity. Identity drives behavior because humans naturally act in ways that align with how they see themselves. Clear shows that identity emerges from repeated actions. Every time you practice a habit, you reinforce a particular identity. Writing daily reinforces the identity of a writer. Training regularly reinforces the identity of an athlete. Tidying a little each day reinforces the identity of an organized person. The goal is not to achieve perfection. The goal is to accumulate enough votes for your chosen identity that it becomes your default. This removes the constant internal battle of motivation. When habits become part of who you see yourself as, they require less effort because they feel natural. Identity-based habits also solve a psychological problem. Most people fail because they try to change behavior without changing self-belief. Clear argues that identity change is the deepest form of improvement because it reshapes how you interpret experiences. Instead of forcing yourself to perform good habits, you begin acting in alignment with your self-image. The transformation is subtle but powerful. Your habits are not just actions. They are expressions of the person you believe you are. Chapter 3: How to Build Better Habits in 4 Simple Steps. Before introducing the 4 laws of behavior change, Clear explains the basic neuroscience of how habits form. Every habit follows a 4-step loop. 1. Cue, a trigger that initiates behavior. 2. Craving, the motivational force behind the behavior. 3. Response, the actual habit or action. 4. Reward, the benefit that reinforces the habit. This loop is always operating in the background of daily life. When you wake up and check your phone, when you grab a snack after work, when you scroll social media, the pattern is the same: cue, craving, response, reward. Even negative habits follow this structure. Clear argues that effective change requires redesigning this loop rather than relying on motivation or willpower. Habits become automatic when the cue is obvious, the craving strong, the response easy, and the reward satisfying. If any step is weak, the habit collapses. From this insight come the 4 laws of behavior change. Make it obvious, make it attractive, make it easy, make it satisfying. Each law corresponds to one stage of the habit loop and provides a principle for shaping behavior in predictable ways. When you want to build a good habit, you apply the laws directly. When you want to break a bad habit, you invert them. Clear's breakthrough is showing that good habits don't depend on discipline. They depend on design. By shaping your environment, adjusting your cues, and making small actions more accessible, you make success the path of least resistance. Section 2. The first law: make it obvious. The first law of behavior change focuses on visibility. Good habits become easier when the cues that trigger them are obvious, and bad habits become harder when the cues are hidden. James Clear shows that people don't rise to their goals. They respond to the signals around them. By reshaping those signals, you reshape your behavior. Chapter 4. The Man Who Didn't Look Right: The Power of Awareness. Clear begins by explaining that habits often operate unconsciously. Much of what we do in daily life happens without deliberate thought: brushing our teeth, checking notifications, reaching for snacks, or turning on the TV. These actions run on autopilot because our brain seeks energy-efficient routines. To change habits, you must first see them. He introduces the pointing and calling method, used in Japanese train systems, where workers verbalize actions to increase awareness. This drastically reduces mistakes. The lesson: awareness creates choice. Clear offers a tool called the Habits Scorecard, where you list your current habits and label them as positive, negative, or neutral. The goal is not to judge yourself harshly, but to notice patterns you normally overlook. You cannot change a habit you are blind to. Recognition is the first step toward transformation. Once you see what triggers your behaviors, you regain control over them. Chapter 5. The Best Way to Start a New Habit. Motivation is unreliable. People often fail because they rely on trying harder instead of building predictable systems. Clear introduces 2 of the most important techniques for starting habits. 1. Implementation. Intentions. This means stating your plan clearly using the formula: I will behavior at time in location. Vague intentions like "I want to exercise more" fail because they lack structure. Specific plans create clarity and remove decision fatigue. 2. Habit stacking. This technique attaches a new habit to an existing one using the formula: after I current habit, I will new habit. Because your current habits already run automatically, linking new behaviors to them increases the likelihood of success. For example, after pouring coffee, meditate for 1 minute. After brushing teeth, floss one tooth. After getting in the car, take 3 deep breaths. Habit stacking works because it uses the brain's existing patterns as anchors for new routines. Clear emphasizes that starting small is essential. A habit must be easy enough to do even when motivation is low. By anchoring habits to precise cues, you reduce uncertainty and increase follow-through. You shift from trying to remember your goals to designing cues that make them obvious. Chapter 6. Motivation is overrated. Environment matters more. People often assume discipline is the key to success. Clear argues the opposite. Environment shapes behavior far more reliably than willpower. If a cue is visible and attractive, the habit becomes easier. If it's hidden or absent, the habit becomes harder. He explains that humans are deeply responsive to visual triggers. If fruit is placed in plain sight, we're more likely to eat it. If the TV remote is on the couch, we're more likely to turn it on. If the phone is at arm's reach, we're more likely to scroll. Clear encourages designing environments that make good habits obvious. I'll place healthy foods at the front of the fridge. I'll keep books on visible shelves. Lay out workout clothes the night before. Put your guitar on a stand in the living room instead of inside a case. At the same time, you can break bad habits by removing cues. Keep junk food out of the house. Charge your phone in another room. Disable social media notifications. Hide the remote control or unplug the TV. When your environment supports your habits, success becomes natural. When your environment conflicts with your habits, you're constantly fighting against friction. Clear summarizes: discipline is easier when your surroundings work for you, not against you. Chapter 7. The Secret to Self-Control. For years, people were taught that strong self-control is a matter of internal strength. Clear presents research showing the opposite. Individuals with high self-control are simply those who are rarely exposed to tempting cues. They don't resist temptation, they avoid it. Self-control is a short-term strategy. No one can fight cravings forever. Even the strongest willpower eventually fatigues. Therefore, the most effective way to break a bad habit is to remove the cue, not to rely on resisting it. Instead of trying not to eat junk food, don't keep it in the house. Instead of fighting the urge to scroll social media, increase the friction by logging out or removing the apps. Instead of trying to read more, make books the easiest entertainment to reach. Clear emphasizes that successful behavior change is more about strategic design than heroic effort. The most disciplined people are those who structure their lives so they rarely need discipline. Self-control becomes effortless when you remove the triggers that cause bad habits to begin. Section 3. The second law: make it attractive. The second law focuses on the emotional engine behind habits. If a habit feels appealing, your brain naturally gravitates toward it. If it feels dull or unpleasant, you avoid it. James Clear shows that motivation is not a mysterious force. It's the brain responding to cues that signal reward. Chapter 8. How to make a habit irresistible. Every behavior we repeat is driven by an underlying craving. Sometimes that craving is obvious, like wanting food. Other times it's hidden, like wanting relief, connection, or identity. Clear explains that the more attractive a habit is, the more likely we are to perform it. He introduces the concept of temptation bundling, a strategy that links a habit you want to do with one you need to do. For example, listen to your favorite podcast only while exercising. Miss. Watch a show only while folding laundry. Miss. Drink your preferred coffee only while studying. This aligns your brain's reward system with the behaviors you're trying to build. Clear also emphasizes the power of dopamine, not the chemical that rewards you after a habit, but the one that spikes before you perform it. Anticipation is what drives action. When you make habits enjoyable, your brain learns to crave them. He encourages shaping habits so they feel like something you get to do, not something you're forced into. If a habit feels rewarding from the start, consistency becomes natural. The core idea: make your desired habits emotionally appealing so you're pulled toward them rather than pushed. Chapter 9. The Role of Family and Friends in Shaping Your Habits. Humans are social creatures. We adopt the habits of the people around us, sometimes consciously, often unconsciously. Clear identifies 3 social groups that influence us. 1. The close family and friends. 2. The many, the tribe or community. 3. The powerful people we admire. We are more likely to imitate habits that help us fit in, gain acceptance, or earn respect. This means your environment is not just physical, it's social. Clear suggests intentionally surrounding yourself with people who embody the habits you want to build. If you want to read more, spend time with readers. If you want to be healthier, join a community that values fitness. If you want to improve your skills, connect with people who practice those skills regularly. He emphasizes that belonging often determines behavior. If a habit threatens your sense of belonging, you'll resist it, even if you logically know it's good for you. On the other hand, when a habit aligns with your social identity, it becomes easier and more enjoyable. This chapter highlights a truth people often overlook. You absorb the habits of the people you spend time with. Choose your surroundings carefully. Chapter 10: How to Find and Fix the Causes of Your Bad Habits. Clear explains that every craving has a deeper motive. You don't simply crave a behavior. You crave the feeling it delivers. Bad habits often hide reasonable needs behind unhealthy responses. For example, scrolling endlessly may signal a craving for distraction or comfort. Overeating may signal a craving for emotional relief. Procrastinating may signal a craving for reduced stress. If you attack the behavior without understanding the craving, the habit will return in a different form. To break bad habits, Clear recommends identifying the underlying motive and finding a healthier way to meet it. If you crave social connection but scroll social media, consider calling a friend or joining a group. If you crave rest but procrastinate, schedule structured breaks. Another strategy is reframing habits so they appear less appealing. For example, instead of viewing junk food as enjoyable, view it as something that drains energy and mood. The brain can be trained to see behaviors differently, which reduces their attractiveness. Clear reinforces the idea that cravings are signals, not flaws. Your job isn't to fight them, it's to interpret them correctly. When you understand the true motive driving a habit, you can replace the behavior instead of battling it. Section 4. The third law: make it easy. The third law focuses on reducing friction, simplifying behavior, and making habits as effortless as possible. James Clear argues that people don't fail because they lack willpower. They fail because their habits require too much energy to maintain. When actions become easy, repetition becomes natural, and repetition is the engine of mastery. Chapter 11. Walk slowly, but never backward. Clear begins by challenging the myth that success requires massive effort. In reality, consistent small actions outperform occasional heroic bursts. People often wait for motivation to strike before they move, which leads to inconsistency. Instead, Clear advises lowering the activation energy for a habit so you can start even when you feel unmotivated. The focus is on taking action, not aiming for perfection. Early in a habit, the goal is not performance, it's repetition. When a habit is repeated often enough, it becomes easier and more automatic. Clear uses the example of a photography class. One group was graded on quantity and the other on a single perfect photo. The quantity group produced better work because they gained experience through repetition. The perfection group procrastinated, created less, and improved far less. The lesson: you get better by doing, not by waiting. Clear explains that to develop mastery, you must first develop consistency. Even tiny repetitions build neural pathways. The more often you perform a behavior, the easier it becomes to repeat it. And the easier it becomes to repeat it, the more likely it becomes part of your identity. Toward the end of the chapter, Clear highlights an essential idea: habit formation is not about doing more. It's about making the action feel natural. You don't need intensity to change your life. You need repetition. Slow, steady movement forward beats fast movement that collapses under pressure. Chapter 12. The Law of Least Effort. Humans are wired to choose the path of least resistance. Our brains naturally gravitate toward whatever requires the least effort. This explains why we check our phone instead of reading, watch TV instead of working out, or delay important tasks in favor of easier ones. Clear argues that instead of fighting this natural tendency, we should use it. The key is to design your environment so that good habits are the easiest option and bad habits are the hardest. Examples include: keep your guitar on a stand in the living room instead of in its case, place fruit on the counter and hide junk food in the pantry, put your running shoes by the door, prepare your workout clothes the night before. Just as important is increasing the friction for bad habits. Remove apps from your home screen. Put the TV remote in a drawer. Move unhealthy snacks to inaccessible locations. Work in an environment where distractions are minimized. Clear emphasizes that energy is often the deciding factor between starting a habit or avoiding it. If a behavior is easy and convenient, you are far more likely to do it. If it's complicated or inconvenient, even the best intentions fail. People often assume they need motivation to act, but what they really need is to reduce friction. When the effortless choice is the right choice, consistency becomes natural. Clear concludes with a powerful idea. Success is often a matter of making good habits convenient and bad habits inconvenient. Small adjustments create environments where desired behavior flows smoothly, almost automatically. Chapter 13: How to Stop Procrastinating with the 2-Minute Rule. The 2-Minute Rule is one of Clear's most practical tools. Every habit can be started in under 2 minutes. This rule acknowledges a simple truth: starting is the hardest part. Once you begin, momentum carries you. The rule transforms daunting habits into ultra-simple versions. See ya, go for a run, becomes put on my running shoes. See ya, study biology becomes open my textbook. Write a book becomes write one sentence. The 2-minute versions are not the end goal, they are the gateway. They remove mental resistance, making it easier to transition into the full habit. Clear argues that the real barrier to forming habits is not capability, but entry. People resist habits because they imagine the entire task, not the first small step. By shrinking habits into simple beginning rituals, you make them easier to initiate. He warns, however, not to confuse simplicity with stagnation. The purpose of the 2-minute rule is to make starting inevitable, not to stay in beginner mode forever. Once the habit is rooted, you can naturally scale it. The brilliance of the rule lies in removing psychological barriers and making habits frictionless. Clear's message: when a habit is easy to start, it becomes easy to continue. Chapter 14: How to Make Good Habits Inevitable and Bad Habits Impossible. The most reliable way to maintain habits is through commitment devices, decisions you make in the present that lock in behavior for the future. Commitment devices eliminate the need for willpower by restricting choices or making certain behaviors automatic. Examples include scheduling workouts with a partner, paying for a class in advance, using apps that block distracting websites, preparing healthy meals ahead of time. Clear explains that commitment devices help you avoid impulsive decisions that conflict with long-term goals. They reduce the need for moment-to-moment discipline by removing temptation entirely. He also introduces habit contracts, agreements where you commit to a behavior and set consequences for breaking it. Some people use financial stakes, others use accountability partners. The contract creates external pressure that reinforces the desired habit. Clear's message is clear: the less you rely on willpower, the more stable your habits become. Willpower is fragile, inconsistent, and easily exhausted. Systems, structures, and commitment devices create predictability. To make good habits inevitable, automate bills and savings. Set recurring schedules. Set prepare tools and environments in advance. To make bad habits impossible, set remove temptations completely. CX create barriers that make undesirable behaviors too inconvenient. Clear concludes the third law by emphasizing that ease drives consistency. If your habits are simple, quick, and frictionless, your future becomes easier than your past. Section 5. The fourth law: make it satisfying. The fourth law explains why habits stick. It focuses on immediate rewards, emotional reinforcement, and the psychology of satisfaction. Humans repeat behaviors that feel good and avoid behaviors that feel bad. When you make good habits satisfying, they strengthen. When you make bad habits unsatisfying, they fade. Chapter 15: The Cardinal Rule of Behavior Change. Clear introduces a simple but powerful idea. What is immediately rewarded is repeated. What is immediately punished is avoided. Humans are wired to prioritize short-term outcomes. Even when we want long-term results, fitness, savings, learning, we struggle to maintain them because the rewards arrive slowly. Meanwhile, bad habits provide instant pleasure. Sugar tastes good now, scrolling feels good now. Procrastination provides immediate relief. This imbalance explains why many people fail to stick to good habits. The rewards are delayed. You might exercise for a week without seeing results. You might read daily without feeling smarter at first. The gap between action and reward weakens motivation. Clear suggests creating small, immediate satisfactions that reinforce the behavior. This can be as simple as checking off a habit tracker, giving yourself a small treat after completing a routine, or celebrating progress in a visible way. Positive emotion reinforces memory. When the brain associates a behavior with satisfaction, it becomes easier to repeat. Clear emphasizes that identity plays a role here. Each time you complete a habit, The satisfaction comes not just from the action, but from becoming the type of person you aspire to be. This chapter delivers a crucial truth. Long-term habits survive because they feel good in the short term. By attaching immediate rewards, you teach your brain that your future is worth supporting. Chapter 6: How to Stick with Good Habits Every Day. One of Clear's most effective strategies for consistency is the use of habit tracking. This method involves marking each completed habit on a calendar or app. Even a simple X on a chart creates satisfaction. It's visual proof of your effort, and seeing a streak grow encourages you to maintain momentum. Habit tracking works because creates a cue, the desire to complete the streak. Provides a craving, you want the reward of marking it. Initiates a response. Perform the habit. Gives a reward, the satisfaction of completion. Clear introduces the rule: don't break the chain. Missing one day is normal and forgivable. Missing 2 days in a row is a warning sign. Missing 3 becomes a path toward losing the habit entirely. He stresses an important point: never aim for perfection, aim for consistency. If life interrupts your routine, shrink the habit to its smallest form. If you cannot run for 30 minutes, walk for 2 minutes. If you cannot write 500 words, write 50. Maintaining the identity of someone who shows up is more important than achieving the full action. Clear also acknowledges that tracking itself can fail if it becomes too complex. The tool must be easy to use, fast, and satisfying. Otherwise, it becomes another abandoned habit. This chapter reinforces a simple truth: what gets measured gets repeated. Tracking creates accountability, clarity, and momentum, 3 pillars that keep habits alive long after motivation fades. Chapter 17: How an Accountability Partner Changes Everything. The final chapter in the fourth law focuses on social reinforcement. While tracking creates internal rewards, accountability creates external pressure that strengthens habits. Clear explains that people behave differently when someone else is watching. Social expectations create stakes. When we declare a habit publicly or involve another person, we feel a deeper commitment to follow through. 2 tools strengthen this. 1. Accountability partners. This could be a friend, coworker, coach, or mentor. The key is sharing your goals and checking in regularly. When you know someone will ask about your progress, you naturally work harder. 2. Habit contracts. These are written agreements that outline the habit you want to build, how often you will perform it, the consequences if you fail. Some people attach financial penalties, others use public commitments. The idea is to make failure uncomfortable enough that success becomes the easier path. The emotional anchor behind accountability is shame. Not toxic shame, but healthy social discomfort. Humans are tribal creatures. We want to be respected by others and avoid letting people down. Clear notes that accountability does not replace identity-based habits, but it strengthens them during vulnerable periods when motivation dips. He concludes that the strongest habits have multiple layers of reinforcement: inner satisfaction, visible progress, and external expectations. When all 3 align, change becomes sustainable. Section 6: Advanced Tactics. The final section of Atomic Habits explores high-level strategies for people who want to maximize their performance once foundational habits are established. These chapters focus on mastery, genetics, motivation cycles, and the hidden danger of plateauing. Clear shows that success is not merely about building habits, but about continually refining them with self-awareness and adaptability. Chapter 18: The Truth About Talent, When Genes Matter and When They Don't. James Clear opens this advanced chapter by acknowledging a controversial truth: talent and genetics do matter. People are naturally wired for certain skills. Some individuals excel in physical activities, others in analytical reasoning, and others in creative expression. Our biology influences which habits feel enjoyable and which feel draining. However, Clear emphasizes that while genetics determine potential, habits determine performance. A person with natural talent who lacks discipline will be outperformed by someone with modest talent but consistent effort. Habits help you express your potential fully. Clear introduces the idea of the zone of competence. This is the space where your natural abilities align with productive habits. Success comes more easily when you choose habits that match your strengths, interests, and personality traits. He offers practical insight. If you want habits to stick, choose the ones that feel rewarding for who you already are. If you struggle endlessly with a habit, it may be a mismatch for your natural preferences. If you're good at something, it becomes enjoyable, and enjoyment increases repetition. This alignment creates a feedback loop: strength, enjoyment, consistency, mastery, consistency, greater strength. Clear also explains the concept of personality-based habit design, reflecting that introverts, extroverts, detailed thinkers, big-picture thinkers, and different temperament types gravitate toward habits that complement their nature. The conclusion of the chapter is empowering. Talent is not destiny, it's a starting point. What matters most is building habits aligned with your strengths so that discipline feels natural rather than forced. Chapter 19, The Goldilocks Rule, How to Stay Motivated in Life and Work. Clear explains a crucial insight into human motivation. We stay motivated when tasks are neither too easy nor too difficult, but just challenging enough. This is known as the Goldilocks Rule. When habits feel too easy, we become bored. When they feel too hard, we become discouraged. The ideal environment for growth is the just right zone, where the difficulty level is manageable but still pushes us slightly beyond our comfort level. Clear applies this to habits, learning, and personal improvement. A beginner should start with ultra-simple habits. As the habit becomes stable, increase difficulty incrementally. Avoid huge leaps, which lead to burnout. Maintain a level of challenge that keeps you engaged. He draws from psychology research about the flow state, a mental zone where people become fully immersed in a task. Flow emerges when challenge and skill level match closely. This is why athletes, musicians, and skilled workers often lose track of time when performing at their peak. Their work is engaging without being overwhelming. Clear also warns of invisible boredom. When habits are too automated, people stop improving. They may maintain the habit, but their performance plateaus. To continue growing, you need a balance. Repetition builds consistency, but challenge builds mastery. Examples: if you jog daily, occasionally add intervals. If you write regularly, try new styles or harder topics. If you read often, tackle more difficult materials. Humans are wired to want progress, not perfection. Maintaining momentum through meaningful challenge keeps habits alive, interesting, and rewarding. Chapter 20, The Downside of Creating Good Habits. Clear ends the book with a warning: habits can become double-edged swords. Once a habit becomes automatic, it loses conscious attention. You perform it without evaluating whether it is still helping you grow. This creates the risk of stagnation. To combat this, Clear recommends periodic review and reflection. Mastery demands awareness. Without it, habits become rigid patterns that prevent improvement rather than support it. He suggests establishing a system for evaluating your habits: monthly or quarterly reflection, monthly progress, CO journaling progress, must-see examining what is working and what isn't, adjusting goals and routines accordingly. Clear emphasizes that top performers don't rely on habits alone. They combine habits with continuous refinement. They follow a cycle of 1. Build routines, 2. Automate behaviors, 3. Review performance, 4. Make adjustments, 5. Repeat the cycle. He also discusses the reality of identity traps. When a habit becomes part of your identity — I am a writer, I am an athlete, I am a leader — it can be empowering but also limiting. If you become too attached to a particular identity, you may resist change even when it's needed. To avoid this, Clear encourages holding identity lightly. Let habits reinforce who you are, but don't let them prevent you from evolving. The final lesson: habits help you reach a baseline of excellence, but continual improvement requires ongoing reflection. Your systems must grow as you grow. Conclusion. James Clear ends Atomic Habits with a message that is both simple and transformative. Small habits are not small at all. They are the invisible architecture of your life. Every tiny behavior you repeat, the way you spend the first 5 minutes of your morning, the way you respond to stress, the way you handle your phone, your food, your time, your thoughts, is shaping your future in ways you cannot yet see. Clear's 4 laws of behavior change give you a blueprint for building a system that supports who you want to become. Make it obvious helps you notice the cues that shape your actions. Make it attractive teaches you to design habits your brain enjoys following. Make it easy ensures that you can repeat the habit even when motivation disappears. Make it satisfying locks the habit in place through positive reinforcement. The advanced strategies remind you that identity grows through deliberate practice and self-awareness. You do not become great by accident. You become great by small, consistent efforts aligned with your strengths, elevated to mastery through thoughtful challenge and reflection. The power of atomic habits lies in its honesty. Change is not an event, it's a process. A slow, foundational, compound growth process. You don't need massive breakthroughs or perfect routines. You need small actions, repeated often, aligned with the kind of person you want to be. If you can change your habits, you can change your systems. If you can change your systems, you can change your identity. And if you can change your identity, you can change anything. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoy our summary based on inspiration to do something great in our life. I look forward to see you in next mini books. Don't forget to subscribe and like. This helps us reach more people, and comments are always welcome. All the best.